Welcome to In the Arena. My name is Sean Dyke, managing partner of DoorTwo, a leadership development and consulting firm based here in Long Beach, California. Joining me, as often is the case, Chris Stemp. We are at episode 3 in a three-part series of the PCM model. So let's give that base reminder as we're coming back into it. What is PCM? PCM is the process communication model. It is a behavioral lens that we look through to help us understand self and others on how we like to be connected with, how we like to communicate, and the way we will likely handle the distress experience. In essence, we've continued to refer to it as sort of our owner's manual in general.
Yeah, and so today we'll be covering the last 3 of the 6 personality types. So in the first one, we gave a little overview. What is PCM? What's its application? In the last episode, we talked about thinker, persister, and rebel. And in this one, we will be talking about 3 other personality types.
So personality type number 4. You and I both have a fair bit of this in us. This is that individual that you know or that you are that really goes through the doorway of human relations, of connection, and of caring. This personality type is called the Harmonizer. So they are the ones that really genuinely tend to always consider and see others in the world as a core part of who they are. The relational dynamic and connection is critical for them.
Yeah, they're people. They're feeling people. One of the things I like to say about Harmonizers is they're one of the 6 personality types that you can see. When you walk up to them, you can see it because they're going to be smiling, they're going to be warm, they're going to be approachable. The truth of the matter is, and maybe I'm a little biased, but most people like Harmonizers because Harmonizers are the best at saying internally, who do I need to be for you?
Yeah.
So they're the chameleons, right? You talked about it in the last episode. They make great hosts. They're excellent at caretaking, taking care of people, thinking of others, and all in the name of the relationship.
Yeah. Would you say that means it's a bait on purpose? Does that mean if they just show up for you, does that mean they're inauthentic?
So we've talked about this a lot, right? Authenticity versus manipulation and things like that. The truth is, and people ask this a lot, well, if I'm trying to switch to connect with somebody else, what does that mean? And 1, we have all of these personality types. 2, what is your intent in that, right? That's a key driver of, is this authentic? Is your intent positive to create that connection? That's authentic. It's an authentic want to connect. However, I will say that oftentimes the Harmonizer, they can get to the point where they feel they are trying to be so much for everyone else that, who are they without that acceptance?
Yeah, they could lose themselves.
Exactly.
So again, ahead of ourselves on this one, so we'll come back to it.
Yeah.
That core base part of me is this personality type. And so I often sort of highlight it with when my son Jackson was in Little League. He's about 10 years old at the time. And we were hosting, the annual parade preparation party. There's a huge parade for the Little League that we go through. And so the kids have to build a float. So in my mind, that means we're going to invite kids over to our house and we're going to build this incredible float. So I want to be thoughtful and intentional about how we're going to do that. So let's create a space that's really comfortable for the kids. And what the Harmonizer does, the Harmonizer starts walking through the experience of the guest and what are they going to have. So I thought about when the kids park, where they're going to play. We also had a pool at the time. And so I thought, I want to let them play. And so I'm going to set towels out for them. They're going to get hungry. So kids like pizza, so let's order some pizza. But, not all kids like pepperoni, so we should probably get some cheese. And what if we have some gluten-free kids? We should probably bring some of that in. We're going to need something to drink as well for those kids. And so let's do something fun. And so I was like, we'll make this kind of like punch bowl. And what kids like is like dry ice. But no, it's not Halloween. It was just fun. So I decided to put some dry ice in it. Parents. Now the parents are going to come. They're not going to want to just eat pizza. They're probably going to want something a little more elevated so we can some better food. Parents like libations, like bourbon, as we mentioned multiple times in here. Maybe we can get sponsored by a bourbon company.
If you own a bourbon company.
Yeah, exactly. I know someone that owns a rum company. We can go that route. So, it was like, great, we should probably have some beer and some wine and some waters and some sodas, but not just like one kind of wine. We should have red and white, and we should have Sauvignon Blanc, and we should have some Chardonnay. The point being that there is this indexing and this rotation into thinking about others, people. Now, I've said my wife, a lot of persistent thinker parts, thoughts around responsibility, money. In her head, she's just doing the math.
Yep.
Not that she's not a people person, but she's thinking about how much are we spending on this and why are we doing this? And they don't care about all these things. It's not necessary to do. No one's expecting that. But that tendency to really over-rotate into really that thoughtful host or hostess space, that is the harmonizer, that individual that leans into that so heavily.
One of the things that we've said in the previous ones was it's not just the behavior, it's the why behind the behavior. And as you're telling that story, as somebody with really strong harmonizer parts, I can feel at every step, the harmonizer is saying, will this benefit or be in service of others?
Yes.
Right? It's an awareness of their needs.
Yep.
It is a monitoring of their needs and then fulfilling them. And again, it often can quickly create a strong bond with others. They can see reactions of other people better. We call them canaries in the coal mine. They can feel what's going on for better or worse in an environment more quickly. They're just highly attuned to the human, human dynamics of others.
Yeah. And so the social antenna is on
There you
fleek,
go.
right? It's really dialed up where they're going to be in a space where, whether it's a family system or an organizational system, announcements are made, events happen. They read the room quickly. Like they can feel and see what's going on. That's that core set of character strengths that they have. They're warm, they're compassionate, and they're sensitive. They tend to go through that space.
Yes. And you've said this about a couple of the other personality types, but these do not skew towards introversion or extroversion. In fact, all of the personality types we've covered don't really lend themselves to one or the other.
Yep.
You can be an introverted harmonizer, and my wife actually has a lot of this. And what it means is, she's not going to be around people 7 days a week.
Right.
But she has to be around the relationships that matter.
Her people.
Yes. Multiple times. She has to feel that connection with others.
Yes.
So that can be introverted, but still have that people first mentality.
Yeah. Leaders that, in any facet, leaders that show up in this space, they do a really good job of creating loyalty because people feel cared for by them. And the reason they feel cared for is because they are cared for. Like the leaders genuinely care about them. They authentically want to create those connections and those relationships with those folks. And there's a shadow side. They can struggle with a few things. One, conflict avoidance. They can struggle to walk at hard situations and hard scenarios because that might not be pleasing. That might be a little bit difficult or weird. They can also really struggle to be assertive, to take a strong viewpoint or an opinion on something. So that links into that conflict avoidance, but that tendency to sort of want to please. The interesting part in this, and I really had to learn something about this for myself, was it genuinely wasn't compromising on what I wanted. So if somebody says like, well, where do you want to go to dinner? And I would say like, I don't care. Where do you want to go?
Yes.
In truth, I did not care. I wanted you to choose where you wanted to go because I wanted it to be pleasing for you. I didn't have a strong concern about it.
It doesn't need to be a plus minus.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It doesn't
nicely said.
need to be because you get what you want. I don't get what I want. And that is something I'm glad you brought that up. I've always felt about this. People be like, oh, they acquiesce to others. But almost every time, if not every time I acquiesce, as a harmonizer rebel, what it does is it lets me go, number one, it's something you want. And number two, I don't have the responsibility of making the choice.
Yeah, it's actually very
helpful.
Self-serving. It's beneficial for you in a sense. So that harmonizer personality type is that relational individual. They connect, they care, they lean into it. They want to be pleasing. They can be conflict avoidant. They can struggle to be assertive, and they can really over-rotate on being in service of others at all the time.
Yes.
In every facet of their life, if they're trying to be pleasing to those they work with, those they live with, those they interact with in the grocery store, they can deplete their tank really rapidly. And the interesting part in that is they don't want to put that on display. They don't want people to see that because that might not be pleasing. So harmonizers can live this heavy echoing burden that they keep tucked away and internally. So we say that they may repress those things a fair bit. They struggle with putting anger on display.
That's what I was going to say. One of the things, actually two things you mentioned there is one, if you're thinking right now, oh, I think I might have this, or I know somebody that has this. Harmonizers don't like putting other people out. Or like you said, if they have a certain emotion going on, they don't want others to feel it. They often don't want to be at all a burden to others.
Yeah.
Even to the point of compliments. When people compliment them, they will just instantly switch it around so it's about you.
Yeah.
And so just recognize if you do these things. Another one that one time you pointed out to me, and I've since spent time practicing it, is harmonizers aren't good at that anger. And the way you put it is harmonizers often are the ones who will experience guilt-free divorces.
Yeah. We're going to open up this can. No, I think we should chase this. I think this is a worthwhile one. I think just the mindfulness that I'll have in this spot is you're driving in a car, you're running on a treadmill, you're walking somewhere right now, you're, cooking and listening to this, and you just got kind of this punch of like, you're like, oh, I'm that person. Yeah, that's who I am. Wait, what? Guilt-free divorce. That's a heavy hit for you in a moment. So I guess settle in for just a second, because I do think this is an important one for us to highlight.
No, I'm glad you did. And I don't mean it in, oh, they all do or they all will, but I think it's such a tangible example that can happen and what this model can help you avoid if you should so choose, right?
Yeah.
If you are in a relationship, anger is a natural component of that, right?
Anger is a natural component of your human emotions.
Exactly. And then in a relationship, it is also necessary. It is a healthy part. But the harmonizers often, for fear of fracturing a relationship, will not express said anger, although they still feel it, right? And that feeling of anger is very uncomfortable. It's disconcerting. It's something they learn early on, often in childhood, which we talk about. And so they can just feel that anger towards a partner or towards somebody else, but they don't let it come out. And so they just bottle it up and they repress it. And over years and years and years, the pressure builds until there can be a point where they say this relationship is no longer, and they don't feel that, animosity anymore.
They feel justified.
Right. Now, it could be a divorce, but it could be a friendship. It could be
any kind of a
type
human relation breakup, right?
Yeah.
Because they've had an accumulation of experiences that they inventoried as wrong, hurtful, harmful, imbalanced, not okay. But because they avoid conflict, they just inventoried it, which then translates into resentment. And that resentment creates a place in them that gets really, really corrosive to them. So what they will do is they will stuff that emotion, tuck it down, and just put on that beautiful smiling face because they want you to experience them in a positive way. Not every harmonizer experiences this, not to this magnitude, but it's not uncommon for the harmonizer personality type, their shadow side, in their plight to be pleasing, they will deprioritize self to a point of detriment.
There you go. Very well said.
Psychological needs.
Harmonizers need to experience things that feel pleasing. So that could be the environment, that could be the clothing they're wearing, that could be the people they're around, that could be the colors on the walls, the music they listen to. Every time I go home, there's usually a candle lit and some music playing. And it's the environment that's being created is one that is pleasing for the harmonizer. Yep.
It's like for me, if I'm going to cook a dinner at home with my wife, and if the kitchen's messy, if there's stuff on the counters, it's disruptive to the whole thing.
Yeah.
I need the space to be cleaned up, and a little music on, glass of wine, and then it's a multi-sensual experience, which I think is a really real thing for harmonizers, is all of those multi-sensual attributes. If I go to watch a movie, sit down on my couch and watch a movie, and this happens often, and there's not sitting down on a couch and watching a movie.
that doesn't happen often.
But the kids will have been playing, and maybe there's some Legos or something in my line of sight. It's out of place. And it's not because I need it organized. It's just because from a sensory standpoint, it feels
the way it makes you feel.
Correct.
That's the kicker.
It feels unsettling.
I was just laughing because we, text and you've sent me many pictures. Oh, I'm cooking or I'm doing this. And the thing that kills me is with your steaks, you always have the sprig of thyme. I will never.
Rosemary and thyme.
Sorry.
And thyme.
I will never, as the Rebel parts, go through that amount of thing. But it's just such a you thing. It's partially the way this is set up will benefit the person eating it, but partially it's, again, for you, it's
Personal
that
enjoyment,
sensory
100%.
component. So one psychological need for the Harmonizer is get those sensory needs met.
Yeah.
Find the people and places that feel pleasing and do not feel guilty about putting yourself in there.
Take inventory of it. I am conscious. When you learn that you are responsible for getting your needs met in order to show up in the best way for those around you and for yourself, this is when you have that chance to do that. So I'm conscious of, if I'm off my game, I'm not feeling right, I will take stock of, I need to get outside. I need a minute. I will literally go outside and be, to your point, around some falling leaves, or sit outside, get a little sun on my face, sit by a fire, something that helps sort of refuel that. And if you're a sensory person and you're sitting with folks right now and you know this, you're going to laugh at this point because you literally feel yourself recharging.
You do.
You feel this renewal and this refueling in yourself as it's happening.
Yep.
It's powerful.
So the other psychological need for the Harmonizer is a very interesting one. And it is recognition of person. And the reason I say it's interesting is because, as we've said in the past, it is your job to get your psychological needs met. Now, that doesn't mean if you care about people, you couldn't help them get their needs met. As I said, you could give them a drink of water, metaphorically, right? So for a Harmonizer who's going, wait, I got to get my own needs met. I need to be recognized as a person. How do I do that by myself? It doesn't really make a lot of sense.
It means that Harmonizers want to be recognized, not for their work product, not for their conviction, not for their intellect, but for them, for who they are, for the being that they are and the person that they are, that someone appreciates it. It sounds like, thank you for being here. Not thank you for your work, not thank you for the impact that you had, just you, your presence, who you are. That's recognition of person. So on the Harmonizer side, receiving that. Your question is, well, how the hell do I do that for myself?
Yeah.
You can seek it. You assert it. You tell the significant other in your life that that's something that you need.
Yeah.
That is knowing how to get your needs met. It is acknowledging, hey, being around you, one of the things that makes me feel good is when you give me a hug now and again. Exactly. I've told my wife before, she's heard this one from me, and this is, this may resonate for you. If she comes up, I'm like doing dishes or doing something, and if she comes up from behind me and like wraps around me and gives me a hug from the back, that's fulfilling for like a month. Well, why is that the case? Well, specifically because it was solely her initiated.
Right.
I wasn't even looking. I didn't create it. It just came to me, and it tells me that she chose me in that moment.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yep.
And so the power in that for a Harmonizer. So if you are in a relationship or you're in a space where you're a Harmonizer and you need that, you get that need met by being willing to state that. That can be hard for Harmonizers.
I think before we go to the next one, let's wrap up with existential question, just an easy one.
Existential question. Remember, we've talked about this before, so I'm just going to hit the recap. Thinkers is, am I competent? They want to be perceived as competent. Persister wants to be perceived as trusted and valued. The rebel wants to know that they're acceptable as they are. The Harmonizer's question that knocks around in their head is, am I lovable? Do I show up in a way that other people could love? Which is the orientation toward pleasing, why I do all of those things that I do. So if the Harmonizer finds themselves in a spot where they're not feeling loved, and love has a variety of definitions inside of that, appreciated, cared for, thought of, they will start to over-adapt. They start getting excessively pleasing. They start taking on responsibility or taking on ownership of things that weren't theirs to take any responsibility for. I've given that story to you before, where one of my sons has a lot of Harmonizer in him, and he's like 11 years old. I'm making pancakes one morning and I burned myself on the pan. And his default response, which is very common for a Harmonizer, was to apologize.
I'm sorry.
He said, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, bud, did you just apologize for the pan? But that is a Harmonizer 100%. Response to absorb the angst and to take ownership of it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
So Harmonizers are often anxiety sponges for people, but they hold that anxiety. Exactly. They pull all of that in. That can be really difficult for them to hang on to.
Yeah.
So that am I lovable translates into that desire to be pleasing to others. And when they're not being pleasing to others, they often over-adapt and start taking too much ownership of the situation. And in truth, a real strong statement, I'm going to give 2 strong statements. I often don't do this when I'm sitting with people because it's very personal for them. But since it's just you and I in this moment, one of them is that they can become a doormat in their relationships. So they just get walked on professionally and personally in that process. The other one that's really intense for people to kind of recognize, harmonizers not uncommonly can carry some extra weight physically because in their plight to get their sensory needs met, they will overeat.
Right.
So they get sensory needs met through food. So if you're listening out there and you recognize that's part of it for you, realize that there are some alternative, more helpful ways to get those sensory needs met, and don't default to those things that are filling that need for you.
So that covers Harmonizer. We have 2 left.
Yes.
The 5th, these are the folks, you alluded to them in the first one. The way they perceive the world is through, and this is how I put it, what they can do to it. They are action-oriented. They are go, 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 dusk to dawn. I am driven by what I can do. Now, a couple of differences. Where the thinker is what I can accomplish. The promoter, which is this one, is a little bit more of not necessarily what I can accomplish, but what I can do. It's action often for the sake of action.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's not always oriented in a complete end product.
Yeah.
But it certainly has within it movement, progress, energy, activity that they're doing. So we've said it that, you think about, it's a little unfair to specifically categorize it into any one profession, but we'll say, hey, like, look at sales folks. Like they are incredibly common that they've got really strong promoter parts in them because they have that drive and that enthusiasm to go out and to win and to execute and make it happen. So
make it happen. That's a great motto for them. Charismatic.
100%. Very.
You can throw them into most things, and not only will they thrive, but they will enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think about the person, we use this analogy, who you're like, hey, so-and-so dropped out of this keynote. I'm going to need you to give it. And they're the only one that's going to be like, not only will I give this keynote and not know what I'm talking about, it will sound good and I will enjoy it.
Yeah, and it's probable that all of those are true.
I know. It's an incredible, let me figure it out while I go type of personality type.
They thrive in that. And so when we think of those character strengths, those 3 that hit these: charming, adaptable, persuasive.
There you go.
And so they have those abilities to show up in a way that is charismatic and is charming, high fluidity and agility in what they're doing. They can just shift and move on a target. And they can be really persuasive, which is where some of that sales space comes in.
Yeah.
Because they do oftentimes a lot of command of language, ability to sort of move and bob and weave in accordance with what needs to happen. So from a character strength standpoint, a lot of times in organizations, people are looking for these folks.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that, like, again, make it happen. They move the needle because they are always about energizing drive and movement. So dusk till dawn and beyond, right? Or dawn till dusk and beyond. They are just going and going and going all of the time. And as we've said every time, there's a shadow side. So talk us through the shadow side.
Yeah, so you can imagine this type of person, primary goal, get stuff done. As you said, not always driven towards a complete and well thought out end goal, right? And at times they will look at everything is justifiable as a means to an end.
Yeah.
So one of the shadow side is they can play outside the bounds. They can take the path that might not be the most scrupulous, perhaps. There can be some manipulation, some mischief that is made in the sake of activity and doing.
They want to get the job done, whatever that is. So we always say that they are the ready, fire, aim folks, right? It is, I don't know. I'm going to start. Well, what's the plan when we get there? Yeah, I don't know. We'll figure it out when we make it happen.
Yeah.
And the funny part is that's actually the excitement for them.
Exactly.
Like, how can I? Do you think we could, like, get into that concert without any tickets? I don't know. Let's find out.
Yes.
And when I do, I'm going to inventory that as like a badge of honor. That's cool. I did it.
One of the things that I think can get slightly twisted up is the promoter and the rebel. But the why behind it, the promoter is not necessarily doing it for fun. They're doing it for a sense of adventure. They just to feel alive and to feel like we're maybe breaking the rules or making something happen. The rebel is going to do it if they enjoy it. If they don't enjoy it, they won't do it.
Yep. And they're looking for that rebel's looking for the reaction.
Yeah.
Whereas the promoter's really toward the action.
Yes.
Right?
And
They're
there you
pushing
go.
it.
And the promoter doesn't care as much about if somebody else notices it.
100%.
They're very much doing it on their own accord.
Yep.
We have a good friend. We talk about this all the time. We're all into DIY and building and doing. And she is heavy promoter. She will accomplish more in a day than either of us will accomplish in a week.
Yeah.
She'll be like, I'm going to build a bar. And the bar is built.
Yeah.
And you're like, how do you do that? But then you lean on the bar.
You're in trouble.
Noticed?
You're in trouble right now. I mean, just so you know, when this airs, you're in trouble.
But you notice like the structure has like a wobbly leg.
Yeah, you know.
And it might be held on by duct tape and a hot glue gun.
It's fine.
Should be
It's fine.
screws.
Right.
And so, but I think it's such a good kind of storyline for the promoters. They will get it done, not always concerned with the detail orientation, the correctness, or was it done to plan or scope?
Didn't really matter. Did we get that energy met and did we make it happen?
Yeah.
So strength of them is that ability to bring energy and make things happen. Shadow side of them can be that we maybe will do it sort of unscrupulously because we are more oriented and concerned about making the deal happen.
Mm-hmm.
If we need to bend the rules or even break the hell out of them necessary to make those things happen on some level. So character strengths for them and then kind of that shadow side with them.
What we should talk about is what is driving this? Because I do think in my experience, this is another one of those moments when people go, because at first character strengths, promoter sounds pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They are flexible. They can get things done quickly, charming, adaptable,
high energy.
Everything you're looking for. Yeah, I don't need to stop.
These are the people we watch in the movies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Great point, right?
Yeah.
What promoters know that we would like the rest of the world to know is where that comes from. Why are they doing that? And how did it become the driver for them?
Yeah. Ooh, that second part's more complicated.
Yeah.
So their question is, am I alive?
Am I alive?
Am I alive? What do you do with that?
Right.
Am I competent? Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Am I lovable? Okay, I can make a link to that. Am I trusted? That's fine. But am I alive? Well, of course you're alive.
Mm-hmm.
But for the promoter, am I alive is really that question of, am I living my life in the most jubilant, fulfilling, complete, adrenalized way that I could potentially live it? Mm-hmm. Do I have that stimulation and that excitement coming at me in these fun ways? It's why you will tend to see promoter personality types much more into adrenalized environments. Yeah. So you might see them more in motorsport, or you might see them more in rock climbing, skydiving, like not always. Sure. I mean, our friend that we're talking about doing DIY work, that's not her game.
No.
But DIY and a ton of it and work and a ton of it is because those fuel that headspace around like getting the adrenaline going and they're doing.
Exactly.
Okay. Why though? You said where'd that come from?
Yeah,
I mean, that's complicated. Yeah. We haven't necessarily chased this with any of the personality types that deeply. So we said before that the formation of all of these personalities is a function of how we grew up. So I guess we kind of have to do this one anyway, because when we talk about the existential question, it's going to show up. Right. So for this personality, as they grew up, they commonly had caregivers, not always, but commonly had caregivers that might have abdicated the responsibility of care. They might not have been there for them in the same way. They taught them they had to figure it out for themselves. And so, you know, the analogy that we always give is that if you wanted to create a promoter, you take them in their youth, 7, 8 years old, you take them out into the yard, you tell them you're going to throw a little ball with them, toss a Frisbee, do something. But you put an object that they're going to trip on in the yard. By the way, this is an example. Don't do this in real life. You put an object in the yard that they're going to trip on and get hurt. And when they get hurt and when they're calling for you, walk over to them, put your hands on your hips and tell them to suck it up. No one's going to save you, and walk off. And do that again and again as a caregiver. And the kids learn that they can't rely on their caregivers and the people around them. So they keep relationships at an arm's length. So part of the way they get that stimulation in life and that feeling of I'm alive is through incidents, not through relationships. We said earlier, people are wired for connection. They lose that connection. So a lot of times that promoter personality type can tend to want to keep people at arm's length. They have a fear of commitment. They can struggle to be connected to people because historically they have found that if I get too close to someone and I create a reliance on them, I might get abandoned.
They will
and then
hurt
I'm going to
me,
get hurt.
or they will leave. You know, and the reason, again, here's another one on why I think this is so powerful. I have 3 boys, and it is just commonplace. You know, they'll fall and skin their knee, and I will say, like, if there's no blood, don't bring it to me, right? With the best of intention of saying, like, hey, we do need to have some grit, some toughness.
Yeah.
But this personality type and what we're talking about, what it helped me realize is it's still okay to instill grit and toughness in your children, boys or girls.
We would advocate for that.
Exactly. However, can you do it with a way that shows them, and I'm doing this because I care, and I'm still here, right? It's a knowing that they can have some safety in the relationship through those formative years.
Yes.
The promoter often comes from an early recognition that I can't rely on anybody else. I need to become incredibly reliant myself. And this is what drives so much of that charisma, adaptability, persuasiveness.
Yes.
They formulate that to realize you're not going to do it.
Yep.
And so at work, they can get a lot done. And guess what? They can also not let other people get it done.
Yeah. We didn't do this for all the other personality types. Every other one also has an origin story.
They do.
On how those come about. But the reason I think you kind of have to do it with this one is because the existential question.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right? Around, am I alive? And
how does it tie into
does that link into that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess last piece for them, distress for this personality type is they've learned to say, suck it up. Their expectation is that you figure it out.
Yeah.
So when they are feeling distress, they'll have default pattern of, it's not my job to take care of your crap.
Right.
Do your job, make it happen, figure it out. They expect you to be strong, expect you to do a good job, and they can have low tolerance for your collective issues. They just want you to make it happen.
I was talking recently to somebody I care about, and they were complaining about something, and I said, you know what? To tell you the truth, that's a you problem. Yeah. And I walked away, and that was one of my most promoter statements. Again,
it might not have been wrong, but it wasn't. Yeah.
But and probably not what they needed. It's this idea of like, I'll be fine. You need to handle this. Can be their distress sequence.
Correct. And where did that come from? They learned that. That's what they heard
were
all
told.
the time.
So they said, I spend the majority of my life trying to do that for myself. Why can't you do that for yourself?
You and I talked about this. We're going to end up doing more episodes. We'll do some full episodes on distress in general, psychological needs in general, because you can't chase all of these in any one given time. But at least it helps you recognize sort of the groups that we've talked about before. Distress coming from feeling incompetent, distress coming from not feeling trusted, from not feeling loved, from not feeling like that they were showing up in a way that was acceptable to people, from not feeling like that they were alive, or feeling fearful that if they create that connection, they're going to be abandoned. So I'm going to leave you before you leave me space, right? So these underlying drivers of it.
Well, and the thing I find is a lot of times people just want to know the why. They just want to know, why do I have this feeling that everybody's going to leave? Or why do I have this feeling that I have to be the strongest one in the room? Or why do I have this feeling that everybody has to like me? And now we get to say, well, 1, here's some of the answers. 2, here's some of the things you can do about it, psych needs and whatnot. And then 3, and perhaps most importantly, like, it's normal. This is in everybody's user manual.
It's validating. I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I find people, they just go, oh, okay, good. I'm not crazy, or this is normal. Yep, there's 7 people in this room that feel pretty similar, or whatever it might be, you know?
And to highlight, by the way, not everybody thinks like you.
Yeah.
Like there are many like you, and there are many not like you.
Right.
And then you get to choose, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Like, how does that work? Last one.
Which brings us to the last one.
Yeah.
Which is, there are many like you and many not like you. I tend to think we saved the best for last, or the hardest for last, but that's because I don't have a lot of it and you don't either. So it's this thing that I love teaching this one, or understanding it, because it wasn't something I'm going to really learn through my own experience.
Yeah.
At least not yet, because I just don't have as much in me.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll highlight with this, because I think it's an easy grounding or framing to come into this, we've said before that none of these are correlated to IQ. We also said none of them were correlated that we had spoken to yet, or correlated to introversion or extroversion scale. This personality type that is called the imaginer is closely connected into introversion. This personality type, they are incredibly internally imaginative and thoughtful around it. The way they're going to show up is much more in their own mind, in their own head. They are internal processors. They are tend to be less emotive. They tend to show up more flat affect in the world. They don't have what would look like a whole lot of like external exuberance, kind of almost the extreme opposite of a rebel in the way the rebel might show up in that. It doesn't mean not engaged. It doesn't mean not present. It doesn't mean not thoughtful. The world can heavily misconstrue this. Using your analogy of the water heater, when that shows up on the imaginer, we tend to say that the imaginer is probably the most misunderstood personality type in general, because you don't get a lot from them. They're not going to narrate their reality as well as others do. When we talk about people are walking billboards, their billboards oftentimes don't show a lot on them externally. Exactly. It doesn't mean there's not a rich internal world that's happening though.
Yeah. And one of the ways that I think about imaginer is most of the other personality types, if not all, have a drive to externalize something, right? So the harmonizer wants to create that connection, or the thinker wants to do the work, right?
Yep.
Or the promoter, just everything. The imaginer, they actually don't want to externalize their internal world.
They don't have a felt need for that.
They want to stay internal.
Yeah.
The imaginer is often inaction, but that is not a laziness. It is an internal action.
Nicely said. They can be, you and I talk about this all the time when we talk about like imaginers oftentimes find themselves as artists or musicians or software writers or authors, where they have a rich internal imaginative world that allows for the creation of things, imagining something into existence that didn't exist before. Right. There's incredible power inside of that. For the imaginer, it flat out is difficult to navigate effectively in corporate worlds where loud, externally prominent voices tend to show up. It can be more challenging for them because that's not the place that they tend to enjoy as much. It doesn't, I think that they can be articulated or misunderstood as like hermetic, like they want to disappear, be like a hermit, or they're want to be, I want to go just crawl into a hole by myself. That's just false. That's not the case at all. They don't have a need to be around people as much. It can actually be excessively energy consuming being around people. So withdrawing and having time for self, alone time, reflecting, reading, being, journaling, doing, or have a set of headphones on, looking quiet while they're listening to some crazy loud music going on. It doesn't mean that they're just this melancholic, sedate state at all.
They have more probably going on internally than many, but it doesn't show to the outside world. Their character strengths are calm, reflective, imaginative.
Yeah.
So think about the times in your life where those strengths will serve you or have served you. They're coming from this imaginer personality type.
Yeah, that you're accessing.
Yeah.
And that phrase that we tend to like to say around this, and we mean it as obviously as an incredible strength, is that the calmest waters are often the deepest. The difficulty is people often aren't patient enough to sit by the calm waters, the still waters, long enough to really extract that, because we tend to operate with such speed and such urgency and such expectation. I remember years ago, I was, this story, I was on a car ride. It's like a 2-hour car drive somewhere. And there was a gentleman that I didn't know him very well. I'm as extroverted as you can be.
It up,
I am harmonizer-y. And I'm like, oh, people, yeah, right. And so we get in the car and I did not know at the time that he was an imaginer. I just didn't know him at all. And it's
God,
such
he
a
must
mess,
have
dude.
hated this.
We both hated it. We didn't
right.
realize it because I would be like, so man, where are you from? And he would say like, Buffalo. All right, sweet. And then I wait for a second. I'd be like, so like you grew up there? Like, how was that? It's good. And then we drive for a little bit more and I was like, this is just super awkward. And I got to find a way to make this guy come out of his shell. Why I felt that need? I don't know. I was uncomfortable. So I'd say like, so you have like siblings? And he'd go, yeah. And I was like brothers, sisters, like one or two.
Immediately.
So it was such a long car ride. And like I get to the destination and I tell my wife, like, that was brutal. Like that was just so hard to ride with him. And like a half an hour later, she comes up to me chuckling and she says, so I was just talking to his wife and he said, that was brutal. Sean just wouldn't stop talking, right? We call this a miss in this world where we're working, where the channel of communication we're trying to use to communicate is just totally incongruent with the other one.
Yeah.
So the imaginer, he would have been completely happy with, man, let me throw some music on, let's just ride.
Right.
And he wouldn't have felt the discomfort in it. It would have been fine. In fact, fueling.
Which is fascinating too, because there are many listening who are like, yes, Sean, stop talking. And then there's many listening going, I hate that awkward silence.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show what we do in PCM is we put a name and an understanding and awareness to the experiences we all have.
Yeah.
So that when you're in that car and it's quiet, you don't start going, they don't like me, I got to fill the silence, this is awkward. You can say, maybe this is their jam. Maybe I can try it on for size and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, a way to build connection while also trying out a new personality type, if you will, which we'll get into in another episode. Talked a little bit about the character strengths. Let's wrap this up with a couple more. One, what is the existential question that's driving the imaginer?
Yeah. It sounds counter to the individual because we've just said that they actually like to be left alone. They spend more time internal. But the existential question is, am I wanted? Which sounds, again, counter. But wait, you put yourself in a position where you don't want to be around people. Yes and no. The question is, because of that tendency for them to withdraw, when they withdraw, there is an echo. Does my existence, does my presence, does it matter? Do people want me around? Do people want my views? They want my opinions. And sometimes we have this whole self-fulfilling thing that we will do where as we retreat and no one comes to check on us and no one interacts, it fuels that headspace for us of, am I wanted? Best description of this ever was from my brother-in-law. He did a phenomenal job. I said, I don't understand how am I wanted is your need, dude, because he's an imaginer. And he was like, I'll explain it to you perfectly. He said, let's take Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is kind of a nightmare for me because there's people everywhere. But I know I need to be socially appropriate. I know the correct thing. So of course I come out, I interact, I socialize. But within about 15, 20 minutes, he does a really nice job of fading to the back. In fact, he'll often disappear. He'll head into his room. And so for 20 minutes or so to recharge. And he said, I might be in there reading, or maybe I'm playing a video game or doing something, but here's what I want to have happen. I want you to walk down the hall and I want you to knock on my door. And then I want to say, yeah. And I want you to just go, you good? And I'm going to say, yeah. And then I want you to walk on. I don't want you to come in. I need the time.
Yeah.
But I want to know that my absence was noticed.
Right.
That I was wanted in that space. So there is this power in the imaginer when they recognize they are wanted, that the collective capabilities that they bring are. The difficulty is because of the natural style and the natural way that they show up, they can unintentionally put themselves on the back of the shelf where people may miss or may see them.
Which brings us to the final component of what we're going to cover, which is psych needs. And the psych needs of the imaginer is actually fairly simple for once. We have one, which is solitude.
Yeah.
They don't want to be alone. They need it. And the way, the final thing that got me to understand imaginer was solitude is their need. And if they don't get it, they will make it. And the way that shows up is they are physically present, but mentally not present. They are in their own world. And so if you have imaginers in your life and you're trying to talk to them and they're kind of just staring off into space, for lack of a better term, they're not ignoring you. They're getting that need met in this environment.
Yeah.
That's a tough one it's a tough one to understand.
One of the coolest linkages, and I would say if this is you, take heart and know that you're doing fine in this. Harmonizer parent, imaginer child. The harmonizer parent wants to connect, wants to relate, wants to be, wants to hug, wants to be present, wants to physically touch, wants to interact, wants to be loved by.
Yeah.
And the imaginer child can a lot of times not show that. They don't demonstrate it. And they don't need the space. Maybe they want to be in their room reading. There's nothing wrong with them. They're getting that need met in the way that they need to get met. And knowing that as a harmonizer parent, you are doing what they need by allowing that, creating the space for them and the solitude for them. So you're giving them exactly what they need. So if they're not surrounding you and sitting next to you on the couch and cozying up into you, it doesn't mean they don't love you. It doesn't mean they don't appreciate you. It means that you are creating safety in the space for them to be who they are.
Well said. Probably a great place to end it too. I mean, listen, we've said this a bunch of times. This is not where it ends.
Nope.
This is our crash course for a couple of reasons. One, we've seen the power in this model and what we cover. And two, for the foreseeable future, in almost every conversation, you will hear us allude to a personality type or a distress sequence or a psychological need. And then we will say, go check out these episodes. So it serves as a little bit of our library for light reading.
Yeah, entirely. If you're a common listener, you're going to hear us say all the time, once we bring it up, give us some patience and tolerate when we say, hey, if you don't know what we're referencing in that moment, we're not going to chase it right now. Go check out those other episodes. The provocation that I would make is that if you tend to interact in the world your way that you default to, and then you run into situations where you don't have influence, or you're bumping into relationships, or things aren't working in the way that you want, recognize that is a you problem. Back to it again.
Yep.
There is that phrase that we tend to say, most of our dissatisfaction in life is a reflection of limitations in yourself. You are choosing to not work through some of those limitations you've created on yourself. So build increased awareness around who you are, around the limitations that you may currently have that you can completely outgrow, and expand your impact and your influence.
Very well said. So I will do the necessary, which is, look, we've talked about it a bunch of times. Make sure you subscribe. We'll be talking about this a lot more. Sign up for the newsletter, DoorTwo.com/sign up, because we will be putting this information out via email as well. We also have workshops. We have a number of workshops where this is what we do for 2-3 days. It's called Influence Through Human Dynamics. So you can sign up for that, DoorTwo.com, reach out, and learn much more about this model.
Excellent. Looking forward to next time, man.
Yes, sir.